Hi and welcome to our first video in our series on installing and configuring the Snort intrusion detection and prevention system. In today's video we're actually not going to be installing Snort, rather we're going to be installing Snorby. Snorby is going to be our front end. It's a web-based interface for viewing and managing any alerts that we get from our Snort processes. I typically like to install Snorby on its own machine. This can be a physical machine or a virtual machine. I currently have a putty session open up. I'm just SSH'd into a Slackware Linux machine. It's version 14.1. It's the 64-bit edition. I recommend you use the same if you're following along with these videos. And when you install Slackware, go ahead and do a full installation. Don't deselect any packages, because I want you to be able to follow along with me, and I don't want you to have to track down any dependencies you may be missing as you watch these videos. So please, at least for the purposes of following along with the videos that I'm doing, just go ahead and do a full install of Slackware. And I created a directory called install files on the root directory of the Slackware machine. And I just put a couple of files in there that I downloaded. The first of which is SPO Package, and the second of which is Snorby itself. We need SPO Package because there's actually one package we want to install that is available as a Slack build at slackbuilds.org. Instead of going to the site and downloading the Slack build script and downloading the source for the program we want to compile and putting them all in a single directory and executing the script, we're going to use SPO Package. It takes a lot of the legwork out. It reaches out, grabs the Slack build script, grabs the source that it needs, and will automatically compile and install it for you. So it just saves a few steps. Nice little tool to have. I've already actually installed what we need on this machine, but just to give you a rundown, from this point, what you would want to do is use install package to install SPO Package. You would just hit enter here. Then you would just run SPO Package. The first time you run this, you'll be prompted to type the letter C to create. Be sure you do that and hit enter. And then it'll launch you into the SPO Package ncurses based menu, which is sort of a little graphical type display. You can exit out of that immediately because there's also command line options, and I prefer the command line. You'll first want to do SPO Package-R and hit enter. And that's going to synchronize with the actual Slack builds repository to make sure that SPO Package here knows about the latest versions of things on slackbuilds.org. And then finally, you'll do an SPO Package-I WK HTML to PDF. The reason for this is actually the program that we want to install using SPO Package. This is not a requirement for Snorby, but Snorby does have the ability to generate, you can choose to generate reports that are PDF reports, and this is going to be necessary to do that. So it's a nice thing to have, so let's go ahead and install it. It may take a few minutes to actually compile and install, but once that's done, then we're ready to move on to setting up our database. This is going to be the database used by Snorby. We're going to use MySQL, which if you've done the full install of Slackware should already be on the system. So we just need to basically get it ready. And I'm going to just clear my screen here, and we'll start by doing a MySQL install db -- user equals MySQL. And then we'll just hit enter here. And we're just going to set some permissions on the Slackware MySQL startup script. And finally, we're just going to start it up. Once you see this last MySQL D safe line here, you can just hit enter to get back to the prompt. Next, we'll set a password for the root user for MySQL. And for the purposes of this video, I'm just going to make it password 1. You'll probably want to choose something a little stronger. And I just put single quotes around it. Okay, let's just test that real quick. The MySQL U root-p should tell us login is the user root and prompt me for a password. And I'm going to put in password 1 with a capital P. Now at this point in time, the login was successful, by the way. At this point in time, it's just going to be any default databases. We haven't actually added the Snorby database or anything like that yet. That's going to come a little later on. So I'm going to quit out of this. We don't really need to be inside of MySQL. And let's go ahead and untar our Snorby installation files. And that gave us a directory called Snorby-2.6.2. I'm actually going to use move to rename that just to Snorby. So now we've got a directory called Snorby. And you know what? I'm going to move that again. Let's move Snorby to var www htdocs. And then let's go into the var www htdocs directory. There's our Snorby directory. Let's go inside it. And finally into the config directory. There's a couple of important files in here. The first which is the database.yml.example. And the second is snorby_config.yml.example. What we're going to do is we're going to rename those so they don't contain the example at the end. So we'll move database.yaml.example to just database.yaml. And we'll do the same for Snorby config. Next, we'll edit the database.yml file. As you can see, I'm using VI. You're free to use whatever text editor you prefer. I generally use VI because, first of all, I just I like using it, and secondly, you never know, your job or with whatever you do, any systems you may encounter, Unix and Linux-based systems. If you prefer a different editor like Emacs, there's always a chance you're going to encounter a system that doesn't have it installed, and maybe there's a lot of red tape and change control around getting it installed. 9 times out of 10, VI is going to be on those systems. So if you're not familiar with using VI, I really would suggest you take some time and learn it, because it's almost always going to be there. So we'll edit our database.yml. And right here is our configuration. It's already set to use MySQL, username root. We just need to take out enter password here and actually put in the password for our root user to access the database. And this is running on this machine, so we can leave localhost. And that's all we need to change there. And now we'll edit the snorbyconfig.yml. And you'll see there's these sections, development and test. We're not really concerned with those. You could actually delete those out of here if you wanted to. We're going to focus on production. I don't actually have a real domain set up, so I'm just going to give it this machine's host name .local domain. And when we install the WK HTML to PDF using SPO package, I believe it actually puts it in user bin. So changing that, and we'll set SSL to true. Not really worried about mailer sender or GeoIP URI for right now. Rules, we'll actually come back and edit this later, but this is really all we need to do for now. Just set the domain and correct the WK HTML to PDF line. So I'm going to save and quit that. And go up one directory, so we're back in the Snorby directory. And while I'm thinking about it, let's just take a look at the date on this. The system is currently set to use Eastern Standard Time as the time zone. There can be some confusion with times if you set up multiple snort machines in different time zones and they're all reporting to this Snorby machine. So in this video series, the snort machines and this Snorby machine we're setting up, I recommend setting the time zone to be UTC without any offset. Don't worry, because in the Snorby web interface, you can still set your own time zone there. So when you're actually viewing the alerts, things will appear in your local time. But on the back end, let's set everything to use UTC. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now with an ln-sf user share zone info UTC, a capital UTC by the way, etc local time. Just enter there, and let's run date again, and bam, now we're using UTC time. Okay, still in the var www htdocs Snorby directory. Now let's run a gem update. Okay, that finished up. So now we're going to do another gem command here. We're going to do a gem install bundler and just press enter. This should complete actually much quicker than the last command did. And finally, special note of the directory that we're currently in. That's where you're going to want to be to run this. And remember before when we were looking at the snorby config.yml file, I said we were only going to be concerned with the production portion of that and not the development or testing. Well, how do we tell it that we only want to use those production settings? We do that by actually setting an environment variable. And there we go. So now we're going to be using the production settings. And we're going to also add to that bundle exec rake snorby setup. And one of the things you'll see as this runs that's going to be happening is it's going to use the credentials we supplied in the database.yml file to access our MySQL instance. And it's going to, once it's there, it's going to go ahead and create a database called Snorby. So we'll, you know what? I actually missed a step here. So if you see this, we actually want to run bundle install first. And you'll get this message, this warning about don't run bundler as root, because it'll break it for all non-root users on the machine. Here's the deal. We're not going to have any non-root users on this machine, so it doesn't really affect us. Most of the work, for anything you do have to SSH into the Snorby machine for, if you're security minded and you don't want people logging in directly as root, Later, you can disable the root account for SSH logins. You can set up individual accounts and give them all sudo privileges. But for everything you're going to want to do, you're probably going to end up just doing a sudo su to become root anyway. So the long and short is you can ignore this warning. It's really not going to affect anything we're doing. Okay, now that the bundle install finished, we can actually, let's go back up in our command history here to our rels env line. So now this should work just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and run this. And you can see here it created database Snorby, like I mentioned earlier that it would. So we'll just wait a couple of minutes here until this finishes. Okay, actually took less time than I thought it would. Now we're not going to be using the web server that displays Snorby by default. It actually has a built-in web server. We're going to use Apache to serve this up. And to do that, we're going to need to use Fusion Passenger. So let's do a gem install passenger. And once that finishes, let's do a passenger install Apache 2 module. Okay, here we can, as it says, we can just press enter to continue. It's going to say, what languages are you interested in? You'll notice here that Ruby is selected by default. So we're going to keep it that way. So here you can just hit enter again. And once this finishes installing, then what we're going to do is it's going to actually output a line that we're going to want to include in our Apache configuration. So when this finishes, we'll be able to move on to setting up Apache. Okay, it's finished up, and here are the here's the load module line. All the stuff in this block is what we'll want to add to our Apache web server configuration. Everything from load module down to the if module closing tag. So we can go ahead and press enter to continue. That'll take us back to our prompt. And let's change into the etc httpd directory. I'll do a listing there. And we want to edit httpd.conf. And near the top are a whole bunch of load module lines. I'm going to search for SSL just to find the load module SSL module. We'll uncomment that. And there's one more module we want to find here. And that's the load module SO cache underscore shmcb. And uncomment that. And I'm just going to move down to the last load module line. And that's where I'm going to insert that block of text that we got from the passenger install. And while we're in here, I'm also going to uncomment this include line. That's include etc httpd extra httpd-ssl.conf. So let's save and quit this file. And now let's move into the extra directory. And here is where we actually have that file that we chose to include, the httpd-ssl.conf. Let's go ahead and edit that file. Going to do a search for virtual host. We can actually go ahead and just get rid of everything starting with this virtual host tag until we see the virtual host closing tag, which I think is the last thing in this file. And I'm just going to insert a block of text here. This is the virtual host directive that we're going to use. And these are commented out, so don't really need them there. So we're just telling it to listen on port 443. We're pointing the document root and the directory to /serve httpd htdocs snorby public. And then we have SSL engine on. Our certificate file is going to be etc httpd ssl apache.cert, and the same directory with apache.key for the certificate key file. Now we haven't actually created these two files yet, so let's go ahead and save and quit this file, and let's go up a directory, and let's create a directory called SSL. And let's go ahead and create those keys. All right. Okay, and you'll be prompted for your country name. I'm in the United States, so I'll just put US. State or province name. Again, you'll want to put in your actual state or province name. For the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going to leave it set as some state. I'll take the default of some state. City, I'll just do some city. Organization, we'll leave it set to, well, you know, let's change that. So I'll actually just put in Epcach University. Not going to put anything in for organizational name. Common name. Snorby1.local domain. And I'll leave email address blank as well. Okay, so now if we look in the SSL directory, we've got our Apache cert and Apache key. So what I'm doing now is the Apache startup script in Slackware. I'm just setting it to be executable so we can start it up. Okay, so we've started Apache, and I can see that there are several HTTPD instances running, so that's what we want to see. So at this point, let's see what happens if we try to access that site. So remember, we're using SSL on port 443, so you'll want to do an HTTPS. And I'm going to put in the IP address of the Snorby machine. Okay, we get this connection is untrusted. That's expected. I'll say I understand the risks and add exception. We can actually view the certificate here, and we can see it's got my organization name. So this is the certificate that we created. And per the OpenSSL command that we used to create the certificate, I did set it so it's good for 365 days. So as you can see, it expires in 1 year. So since I know this is the certificate that I expect, I'm going to go ahead and confirm the security exception. After just a moment here, we should get the Snorby login page. Okay. The default credentials are going to be snorby@snorby.org, and the password is just going to be Snorby with all lowercase letters. So we'll sign in. And probably the first thing you're going to want to do is go to administration, users, and let's add a user. And I'm not going to put a real full name in here, I'll just call it admin user. Admin at local domain. It expects it to be in domain dot format. So you saw before it surrounded the box in red when I just had admin at local domain, because it's expecting that dot and then something else like you would have in a real top level domain. And I'm going to set the time zone for this user to my time zone, which is United States Eastern Time, GMT -5. And yes, I want this user to have administrative rights. I'm going to say update settings. And let's log in as our new user. Okay, there's obviously we haven't really set anything up, so there's not going to be any events or sensors reporting anything. Dashboard should be blank. At this point in time, Snorby is up and running. Let's go back. I'm going to choose to log out here. Let's go back to our SSH session. And let's edit etc rc.d rc.local. Now you could create a better startup script for things, but throughout this entire video series, I'm probably just going to be sticking things into rc.local. And what we want to add in here is simply a cd Snorby httpd And once you have that in there, we can save and quit this file. And all this is doing is, since this is an rc.local, when the system starts up, it's going to change into this directory and execute this command. It's going to set our Rails environment variable back to production, and it's going to run this delayed job script. So this way, even if you reboot the machine that we're currently working with, when it comes back up, everything should start up just fine. Snorby should load, and you should be able to access the Snorby web interface just as we did here. There's still actually a lot more to do with Snorby, but what we're going to do is, in the next video, we're going to start setting up snort on a separate machine. And as we introduce new concepts and things where we need to make changes to our Snorby config, we'll move back over to Snorby and make those changes as we go along. If you want to know more about Snorby, I suggest you check out the website snorby.org. And just look forward to our next video when we start setting up our snort intrusion prevention system. Keep in mind that we are going to be doing multiple instances of snort on a single machine. We're going to start out by setting it up inline, so we will have the ability to actually drop packets. Really just thanks for listening and watching, and feel free to subscribe to this channel and keep an eye out for our next video, which I hope to have up soon. Thanks.